So we got our first look at estimations on how many units Nintendo moved for the Nintendo Switch, and I think it's going to surprise a couple people because the consensus for a lot of people in the gaming community is that Nintendo likes to short their launches or whatever. So most people are probably thinking, despite Nintendo promising 2 million units, that the Switch was going to ship under 1 million units. And it looks like that would be incorrect because the Switch actually shipped and sold quite a few units. Now, the information here is from superdataresearch.com. They are a very large research website. They check things like market research, polls, any sales numbers they can get their hands on. They ask retail stores in different areas around the world, and they came to a pretty good consensus, pretty good agreement, I guess, that the estimation puts the Switch right around 1.5 million units sold through, which is really good. This is, they said, for the first week of sales, and that does place it right around that 2 million mark towards the end of March, because of course that big 1.5 million was the big push, the big first shipment. So the big first shipment is obviously going to be much larger than the follow-up shipment, and then they'll probably have a much larger shipment again in April, considering Mario Kart is showing up. And for anyone that says that Mario Kart is not a system seller, they're crazy, because Mario Kart always sells well. It sells systems. Even though this was on the Wii U, people need to remember a lot of people were buying the Switch did not have the Wii U. The Wii U only had about 13 million units sold, and that's not a lot, obviously, considering the PS4 has over 50 million. The Xbox One has somewhere between 25 and 30 million, just because Microsoft isn't very transparent with their numbers for whatever reason. But the Wii U did not sell a ton. So I think the new audience coming in that enjoys the portable aspect of the Switch are people who didn't have the Wii U. So Mario Kart will help to push the Switch. I know I'm going to buy it. I'm sure plenty of other people will buy it as well. Keep in mind, Mario Kart 8's attach rate on the Wii U was obscene. I think it sold over 8 million units with only 13 million Wii U's sold through. So that's a really, really good attach rate right there. Now, I checked out the numbers that they gave us. They don't add up to 1.5 million, but I think they're just accounting for the big regions. There's a lot of smaller regions that obviously report in smaller numbers in different spots that I guess would add up the rest of it. But they are estimating, Super Data is estimating that 500,000 units were sold in the United States in the first week, which is good. However, I do know Nintendo kept claiming that it was ahead of the Wii, which would then put it over 600,000 units. But again, this is an estimation. They could be off by 100,000. Who knows? But we'll have to see when Nintendo actually has to put their quarter review in or their quarter results in for sales. I believe that ends at the end of March. So we will get like definitive numbers from Nintendo for March pretty much. So we'll at least find out how many Switches exactly sold overall. Maybe not in different regions, but we'll at least know how many went through from retailers to consumers. So we already know that a couple different numbers. We know Japan sold around 360,000 is what they were saying. They're also saying that Europe is not far behind, which maybe that puts Europe somewhere at like the 330 to 340,000 mark, or that could even be 300,000. We did find out, of course, the UK sold 85,000 units, and that France managed to sell 110,000 units. Again, those numbers added up don't equal 1.5 million, but there are, of course, plenty of other places in the world. Australia is not reported here. Mexico is not reported here. I don't know if Canada's reported here or not. They just said United States. So there's still a lot of places in the world that have not reported in that probably have smaller amounts that would then add up to the difference. But that's probably why they're just estimating right there. However, they did also give us an idea of Zelda and how well it sold. Super Data is reporting that Zelda has an 89% attach rate to any of the new Switch owners, which is ridiculous. You know what? I'm actually kind of surprised it didn't break into the upper 90s, because if you're buying a Switch and you're not buying Zelda, I'm not really sure why you're buying the Switch, unless you really just want to play something like Bomberman or 1-2 Switch. That's the 1-2 Switch is the biggest draw I could see. I'm sure there are Bomberman fans who bought it and then got Bomberman, but if you're a Bomberman fan, you probably also play Zelda. So again, I don't know why it's not higher, but overall, Zelda is what they're estimating. Zelda sold 1.34 million units in its first week on the market, which is huge. At that point, they're saying 9 out of 10 Switches, the person bought Zelda when they got the Switch. That makes sense. I think everybody who was at the release with me got Zelda. So everybody, it was probably 100% where I was at GameStop, and there was probably 60 to 70 people getting Switches there. And that really goes to show you that Nintendo definitely did not short the Switch release. I know it's a popular opinion to say that Nintendo artificially shorts systems. And in this case for the Switch, that's not the case at all. Because keep in mind, the Wii, they sold 600,000 units overall in their first week, and the Switch is 1.5 million units. So you can say that they shorted the Wii in the beginning. You can't say they shorted the Switch at this point. I mean, that's about on par with the PS4 and the Xbox One in their first week. So yeah, I don't know how you can keep saying Nintendo shorted the Switch when that's not true. I think a lot of people realize that they can now get the Switch in stores randomly when they walk in. And at this point, there should be an acceptable defective rate somewhere around 3%. 3% of the amount that they are reporting here at 1.5 million means that an acceptable defective amount would be around 45,000 or less. So that means that there would have to be more than 45,000 Switches that are on the fritz and messing up for it to be deemed a really big problem historically. So I think, based on the number of Switches we've seen on camera that are messing up, I don't think it's near that 45,000 unit mark. I think it's below 3%, which is good. So I think right now Nintendo has a good launch on their hands, but here's the big challenge Nintendo has now. They need to keep the sales going. I think everybody understands this, right? You need to keep sales moving along. Mario Kart will help. ARMS will probably help, although ARMS is not a known game. So that's where they might run into issue, is they have to convince people that ARMS is a good, a fresh, a new IP that is worth buying in what we think is going to be May, somewhere in there. So overall, they need to have a good summer as well. E3 is coming up, so they at least have a shot. They have a big shot because they have a lot of area at E3. We saw the graphs and the charts of how much floor space they've rented out. You don't rent out that much floor space to show off 3 games. I feel like they're showing out there with a bunch of stuff. Hopefully Metroid will be big. And there's just a ton of games they can throw out there. Pokemon would pretty much ensure that the Switch crosses 10 million units sold through at the end of December. If they bring Pokemon out and they're able to produce enough Switches, they will cross the 10 million mark, which to me would be a success because the Wii U sold obviously 13 million. The Switch would almost get to that point in its first, 9 months on the market. So yes, that's interesting to note. We'll just have to see. E3 has Pokemon, Metroid, and then maybe some other big surprises. But until then, keep in mind the Switch at 1.5 million units now, on pace to hit 2 million by the end of this month. And no, Nintendo's not shorting us. They're just producing them as much as they can. Second month is important with Mario Kart and anything else coming out in the beginning of the month. So we're going to have to see how they do in the second month. Maybe they can push through another 2 million units. Maybe they get stuck at 1 million in the end. The second month, a little over 3 million. That wouldn't be bad either, but we'll keep an eye on it. I'll let you guys know if any definitive numbers come up before they report their quarterly earnings, which is supposed to be at the end of March. It might even be the first week of April after they get it all done. But until then, guys, I will see you next time.